You advise tech billionaires actually on how to give away their money. Elon Musk has promoted your book. To have Elon Musk promote your book is pretty extraordinary. And then also you talk about why we should invest in the future through charitable giving. Investing in the future is not something that a lot of people think about when it comes to charitable giving. Why do you say that's so important?
Well, it's so important to use targeted donations to fund the most effective nonprofits working to protect future generations because they're just so disenfranchised. They don't have a voice in markets. It's not like they can bargain with us. And they don't have a vote, so they can't lobby us either. They can't tweet or write articles. And so it's left up to altruistic people to represent the interests of future generations instead. And well-targeted donations can be extremely effective towards that end.
You know, a lot of people, I think, may assume that those who are newly coming into money, younger workers, they're not really thinking about giving back. They're thinking about, making sure that they're able to survive themselves. But you say that it's very important to make sure you're giving back at least 10% of your salary. You give back as much as 50%, you've said, of your income. First, let's start with you. How are you able to do that? How much money do you give every year?
Well, I live on about $35,000 per year, and I just donate everything above that. That's post-tax, and that honestly feels like more than I need to live and be happy. And the rest of that money can just do enormous amounts of good. And I actually think it's just when we're starting off in our careers that's the most important time to think about charity and giving, because it means that you can create a giving plan where that might mean 10%, it might mean more, it might mean less, but a plan for your giving over time such that you don't become so accustomed to higher levels of consumption. And it doesn't feel like nearly as much of a sacrifice. It's just, you're maybe earning less, 10% less than you might otherwise, but it doesn't feel like, oh, this 10% drop of your income. And I think that means you can do enormous amount of good while not ever feeling the pain of giving.
It's really interesting that you say that, because I was about to ask you what lifestyle changes you've made, but it sounds like you started from the beginning, like a lot of financial planners suggest for children. Spend, save, invest, donate. Start from the very beginning of learning about your financial life and beginning your financial life by making that the fourth part.
That's exactly right.
Or maybe the first part in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, many people say that student years are the best years of your life. And it's not like for most of us, we're living on very high incomes. And actually, if you look at the literature, money just isn't certainly above a level where you're able to get your material needs met. It's just not a huge contributor to happiness. Whereas if you're giving significantly over time, well, you get a reward of just actually contributing in a major way to making the world a better place, helping prevent the next pandemic, helping even prevent nuclear war. Like, you can be part of a mission to do that. And that's just enormously rewarding.
It is rewarding, and I've done reports on this where research has shown, and I'm sure you've done the same, where you can actually not just feel better about yourself, but that feeling better about yourself, particularly in very difficult times, makes you perform better, perhaps at work, adding to your income there. All these things add to one another. But the reality is many Americans are saying, hey, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Even those making $100,000 or more are living barely within their means, if at all. How are they able to donate? How are they able to give back, and why should they?
Well, I think it's just important to put all of this into a global perspective, where you mentioned someone who's earning $100,000 per year. I mean, they're well into the richest 1% of the world's population. And if they were earning $90,000 per year, or even $80,000, it would still be in the richest 1% of the world's population. And so the thought is, well, if 99% of the world can live on, much less than that, then surely that is possible. And that might mean, budgeting and planning. That might mean not buying like such a large house, or like thinking about especially the material goods you buy, which in my view don't really make a big difference to your happiness anyway. But most people in the world are living on much less even than the just income of a typical American. And so you can have this transformative impact while still being in, the richest few percent of the world's population. So yeah, why not do it?
Absolutely. Now, here's the key. You want to have a transformative impact. And I know I've done stories about Charity Navigator or GuideStar or places to look up the best charities or find out where your money's going when you're donating to certain charities. But your movement, Effective Altruism, tell me more about what that is and why you think that's a really effective way to make sure that we're giving for our future selves.
Yeah, so effective altruism is about trying to use your money and time to do as much good as you can. So thinking, well, of all the things I could be doing, what's the most effective? And so we've done enormously in-depth research to work out what are the charities where the money really goes farthest. And that's not just looking at percentage spent on overheads, which isn't that important a metric, or CEO salaries, which is not that important a metric. Instead, it's looking at concretely, how many people are you benefiting and by how much? And one thing we found is that just looking at global health and well-being to begin with, you can save a life for about a few $1,000s. And that's, really well-supported, well-justified claim. That's just incredible. That means that, if you are even just on a typical US salary, then by donating 10% of your income, you can save dozens of lives over the course of your life. That's just this pretty amazing thing. Then in other areas, I think potentially you can do even more good again. I think this is, just something that I think many of us, most of us, in fact, when we think about what values do we want to have, how do we want to think of our lives when we look back on our lives on our deathbeds, we think, I want substantially improving the lives of others to be a part of that.
How do you specifically find these charities that are fulfilling the effective altruism movement's mantra? How do you make sure that they're benefiting a certain number of people and you get those metrics? Is that something that you have on your website? Is there a charity or a group of charities that you recommend that you've already vetted that you know are doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the idea of this 10% pledge and a longer list of recommended charities, you can look at givingwhatwecan.org, which is an organization that is encouraging people to take at least this 10% pledge. Over 8,000 people have now done that. And then there's another organization, GiveWell, which does extraordinarily in-depth research, in particular within global health and global development, to look at the literature from academia, from economics, then investigate particular charities that are working on the highest impact interventions, following through to make sure the money is really being turned as much as possible into improvements to people's well-being. And GiveWell are just an extraordinary resource if you want to have the most impact with your money.
And you can definitely find more about them on CNBC.com. I've reported about GiveWell as well and agree they're a very good resource for people to check out. Some people may say, well, I'm giving through my job. My employer has said starting in September, in the summer of 2020, that they were going to be making some concerted efforts to work toward social and economic justice. They've made huge donations to organizations saying that they're doing this after the killing of George Floyd here in the U.S. And so I'm wondering how those types of philanthropic initiatives are fulfilling what you're talking about in terms of effective altruism. Have they been effective? And should employees and workers think that if they're working for a company that says it's doing good, they are?
So I think corporations, they have the capacity to be enormously impactful, and many companies have donation matching schemes that, I'm very encouraging of. However, I am just generally skeptical when corporations say that, they're encouraging philanthropy or they're doing philanthropy in a big way, where the incentive of the company is to do things that look good for PR reasons, not to have the biggest impact they can. And so in general, I think that you're going to be able to, donate more and donate to them by, much more effective places, things that are doing 10 times as much or even 100 times as much good than if you're kind of giving up responsibility and saying, oh, well, the company says they're doing some things, I'll trust them.